Moral courage begins with the quiet multiplication of light. Each flame grows from a single source, existing only because someone chose to light it, in a place designed for darkness. This is when doing nothing is no longer an option. Psychologists call this the bystander effect. In a crowd, an individual's sense of personal responsibility actively diminishes. When multiple people witness the same injustice, everyone assumes someone else will intervene. We see the same mechanism in the silence of a meeting when a colleague is treated unfairly, or on a crowded train car where everyone checks their phones to avoid a stranger's crisis. The scale shifts, but the psychological impulse remains identical. Looking away is the easiest thing a human being can do. It is the ordinary operating mechanism of groups prioritizing their own comfort over a difficult reality. This story begins with a man who understood that comfort. He was a businessman and a profiteer, someone who positioned himself to benefit from a collapsing world without getting his hands dirty. This photograph shows the industrial scale of the war machinery he helped drive. He was embedded in this system, extracting wealth from the very tools of destruction. Look at the man in this portrait, Oskar Schindler. He was surrounded by thousands of others who saw exactly what he saw. Officers, neighbors, and industrialists who made the same calculation. It was not their responsibility to act. Massive atrocities rely on this specific, repeated decision of ordinary people to prioritize their own safety. It is the quiet shame of the witness who realizes, hours too late, that they could have spoken up. Schindler's shift began with the unavoidable friction of seeing one specific life moving through a world that had decided she did not matter. It was the smallest possible unit of moral awakening, seeing one person and deciding they count. He was part of a system built on the idea that certain lives carry no value. As this image suggests, entire populations were reduced to numbers and processed through a vast impersonal bureaucracy. This meticulous, rational order applied the efficiency of a factory to the destruction of human beings, turning people into files tucked away in endless drawers. Resisting a system of this scale requires the agonizingly specific act of valuing a singular identity. It is a rebellion against the safety of the collective. Schindler's rebellion was literal and transactional. He spent his entire fortune to purchase individual lives, negotiating for them name by name to pull them back from the machinery of the state. This is the physical evidence of that effort. It is a list of names representing the movement of people from the condemned to the living. The occupations listed here, carpenter, plumber, remind us these were specific individuals, bought with one man's future. An ancient line from the Talmud echoes through this document. Whoever saves one life saves the world entire. Schindler was not a saint. He was a flawed man who reached a point where he could no longer live with the absence of courage. Moral courage is not a character trait. It is a tipping point, the moment when the weight of inaction finally becomes heavier than the risk of action. We often treat these lessons as artifacts of history, but the mechanism of the bystander calculation is actively operating in our lives today. We have more information about suffering than any generation before us. We see crises in real time, yet we still default to the quiet assumption that someone else, someone more qualified or more powerful, will handle it. Moral courage does not arrive as a grand, sudden decision. It arrives as a series of small refusals to look away, until looking away is no longer something you are able to do. Think of one situation in your current community or workplace where you know something is wrong. You may have been waiting for someone else to address it, assuming your silence is neutral. Breaking that silence doesn't require a grand gesture. It starts with the smallest possible thing. One question, one sentence you have been holding back, or one message to someone in need. These small refusals are how we stop obeying the instinct to be a bystander. They are the first steps in shifting from a person who watches to one who acts. Schindler did not begin with a plan to save 1,000 lives. He began by saving one. History simply asks what happens when you finally decide that doing nothing is no longer an option.